I'm really glad to be able to introduce today Colin Bell, who's a digital construction director with Kier Group, and Thomas Crossley, who's a senior digital construction manager with Kier. And I'm really excited to have them talk about how they're standardizing information delivery planning and information management processes from their projects to enterprise. So I'll bring them on the stage, and thanks everyone again for joining us. Hi, Colin. Hi, Thomas.
Hey, good morning. Good morning, all. Good morning, Mo. Great introduction, as always.
Thank you very much. Really good to have you with us.
I will start to share my screen, if you just bear with me a sec. And we will then, if you let me know when you can see my screen, that'll be good.
Yeah, the screen is up.
The screen's up.
Perfect.
We can see a PowerPoint. Fantastic. I think just to re-emphasize some of the points that you made there, Mo, I think consistency and standardization is becoming more the norm, and people understand now the value in capturing data once and reusing it many times. And I think that the reason that that's becoming so prominent is because actually if you're reusing the same piece of information to inform a number of different insights, there's fewer errors. So you actually, in the bigger picture that you talked about, you're actually protecting margin. Anyway, I'll stop digressing. Unfortunately, you'll only hear from me a bit, and we'll get the real expert and the real wheels behind what we're doing in Kier. But this is just a bit of an overview. If I can, just gonna.
Thank you very much. I'll leave you really looking forward to it. We'll speak in a bit.
Yeah, cool. So we'll quickly introduce ourselves. But as Mo says, Colin Bell, Digital Construction Director. So look after all information management, digital construction, data and reporting, anything that's remotely digital falls well into my camp. And Tom, do you want to do a quick intro and around your new role as well?
Yeah, so I'm Tom Crossley. I'm automation lead at Kier. So I'll be looking at sort of how we're collecting data from all our different projects and trying to get it all in one place so we can do really cool stuff and track our projects and see our performance and hopefully make some money. That's the aim basically.
And Tom means money for the business as well as for himself.
Money for the business, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So right, we're going to do a whistle stop. I think Mo, we got about 20 minutes. So Tom and I have mastered this, and we reckon that we're about 20 minutes, and then we ask some questions at the end if there are any. Not to go through this in too much detail. We're going to talk a little bit around how we got to where we are. That's obviously quite obvious. Tom's going to go into some real detail around what we've done and how we've enabled the business as opposed to just individual projects and some of the cool bits in between. And then we're going to just do a little 60 seconds at the end just around what next, because whilst IDP is first and foremost, because it's the thing that you have to get right, there are other things that we're working on. So what were we trying to do? Well, as everybody already knows, information is power. And if you understand and you have ownership of that power in various corridors within a project, you can do what you like with it. We have been fortunate within Kier that we had some Pathfinder strategic projects. I'm saying Pathfinder, we've had about 5 or 6 of them now where we believe we perfected the art of IDP using Morta and connectivity to our CDE. And the challenge that we set ourselves was to mirror that success and mirror it across all regional projects. Now, the challenge that you have within that is within a regional business, you've got less resource than what we do in our strategic projects because the projects are smaller. So we need to get to a place of consistency and simplification. We call it simplification. Standardization is the same. Simplification simply being doing 2 or 3 steps instead of doing 8 or 9. Okay, so that was kind of our premise was what can we remove and then what can we add, but we only add if we're removing, if that makes sense. And very much this was a journey, and Mo, you touched on it as well. This is a people journey. Yes, it's enabled by technology, but people are at the heart of everything that we're doing here. This is a behavioral program as much as it's a technology innovation. So yeah, very much we want to connect data. We want to link data points as many different ways as we can to, instead of having a streamline, just a single line running through a business, to have an interconnected web where data from anywhere can be linked to something else to inform decision making. And the big problem that we were trying to solve was, whilst we have 3 principal divisions within Kier, we've got a lot of inconsistency across those divisions. We started out with, actually just in construction, we've got a lot of projects and there's quite a lot of differentiation and inconsistency there. So let's cure the inconsistency and then push that into the rest of the business. So you'll see some of that in a sec. A bit of a whistle stop. You might not be able to read this actually because I've gone, a bit silly on the size of the text. I'm sure we can share the slides afterwards for anybody who wants to read them though. Essentially, we've captured this into what's happened in the last 11 months now. Pre-January 2024, we were doing what I would call all the hard work, which was working with Mo and the team at Morta to develop a really scalable IDP solution for our strategic projects, because there was a driver through a well-informed or well-intentioned client in the MOJ. We therefore took a decision in March of this year to enterprise and create an enterprise partnership with Morta, because we believe that our values and motives are all pushing in the same direction. And within Kier, we take a proactive. Yes.
Sorry, I'm just it's still stuck on our faces. Are you?
Oh, is it? Is it not skipping through?
No.
A second. That's not good. That's not good. If I go back here and start sharing again, you've missed out all the juiciness, haven't you?
Yeah, sorry. It's just when you started talking about, I realised you hadn't changed slides yet. So.
All right. Thanks, mate. That's all good, is it? It's not a real event, is it? If there's not a technology fail.
That's usually the way. It's usually the way.
Is that back now then, Tom? Is it?
Yes. Yeah. It is. It is now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thanks, mate. Yeah. I'll only be 60 seconds, and I'll hand over to you anyway, Tom. So then it's your problem to bear. Yeah. But in March of this year, we took a decision, and that was premised on, we want to make this real, but we want to apply it across all projects. We got our initiatives, our objectives aligned, and set a really clear aspiration for what we wanted to do. And then we looked around the business, who was doing this bloody brilliantly and who could take that knowledge and scale it across all of the business. That was Tom. And he'll talk about how great he is in a sec. Then Tom started Tom then started a journey, and I think it was a journey, Tom, it's fair to say, a journey of, if we're going to scale this, what do we need? And that, that's all the difficulties around standard templates, supporting documentation, guidance, all the boring stuff, but all the stuff that it's kind of like the duck's feet below the pond. All you see above the water is the calm, elegant duck, but actually beneath the water, you've got feet pedaling, and you really need that. And we formally launched the ideology of what we were doing at our digital forum event back in September, with a view that we then went live in October of this year. And since that, we've created little mini success plans for each of our different regions. So our construction business is broken into 7 different parts. Each has a little mini success plan, which has been set out, and that all is centered around the IDP process. And in 3-4 weeks, we've got 20 live projects, and the pipeline is currently it's somewhat more than what Tom can probably handle. So we're bringing more people to Tom's team to support with that. Right, we're trying to skip on here, Tom. Can you tell me if the screen changes?
Yeah, works now. Yeah.
Right. Okay, mate. So I'll skip past this and go to your first slide. Just give me a nod when you need me to change.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for that. So it's a bit of a tough one to work out where to start with this. So effectively what we're doing is I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of how we're using IDP, and then how we've taken it from our individual projects and our plan for scaling up in the future. And I'm going to talk about some of the challenges and the things that we've had to really consider and sort of break down in much simpler ways to be able to get this rolled out consistently across different business units. So first off, we just want to explain sort of the really basic concept of what we're doing with Morta, and how we're using Morta to use it for our information delivery plans, so IDP. So really simple. We onboard our information suppliers, and that could be consultants, engineers, subcontractors, specialists, the usual crowd that we're all used to working with. And we're bringing them into Morta, into our IDP, and we're collecting all that good planning data. So they're building all their documentation. Each Morta site would be set up specifically to the project's information standard. So where projects have a very granular standard, so stuff like the MOJ, stuff like the DFE, we've basically been able to capture those requirements within this template. But then we've also got a Kier standard as well, which is just trying to drive consistency. So what we've done is we've built a standard IDP template. So once we've got some good data in the platform, we're then looking at how we're capturing that information, and we're pulling in integrations from Viewpoint, which is then giving us the ability to track visibility and how much that information has been delivered, how much hasn't been delivered, and from that we can take that data set and we can manipulate it into any format that we want, basically with some extra technology on top. So we'll be pulling on Morta's integrations to be able to go into Excel or Power BI. And from that, we can then share the results of the IDP with our construction teams. So as you can see, there's an example at the top of the slide there where we've got a nice breakdown of our IDPs, how much information is delivered, how much information delivered late, a nice S-curve to see if we can track, visually see how we're performing against the plan. And then we can also see all the list of deliverables. So 2 streams of information really here. One set of information for the construction team so they can see what deliverables they have, gives that real visibility of what's going on in the project. And then what we've also got then is an output for our client team, because typically they want MIDPs delivered as an Excel into their common data environment. So again, we can connect into Morta and translate that data that we're collecting consistently into the format that the client wants and needs for their own check-in through the construction project. So that was a really, really whistle-stop tour of how we're using Morta for IDP. So what I'm going to do now is give you basically a breakdown of how we've evolved, from our custodial projects. This is where it all started. So just to give you a brief history, so I think within Kier Construction, we've built 3 large prisons recently. So if we go way back into, I think it was something like 2012, 2014, something like that, we were building Oakwood Prison in Staffordshire. And we had Viewpoint on that project, and we were effectively just pulling out data into Excel sheets. And I don't think we were doing much more than that. We were literally just counting from those Excel sheets that we could extract from the system. Following on from that project, a few years later, we picked up another project, H&P 5 Wells, where we developed a process where we went from Viewpoint to Excel to Power BI. So effectively the process that we're doing now, but it was very manual, very clunky, prone to problems, people changing spreadsheets around, altering templates, and it was constantly breaking all the time. So when we got our next prison job for H&P Millsike, this is where we were introduced through Morta via the MOJ, because they were using it to host their information standards. And we thought, right, this is brilliant. We can use this to manage MIDP. So what we effectively did was on that project we connect Viewpoint to Morta to Power BI automatically. Standardization, got a standard template. People can't break things. They can't change the data set. Got nice data validation. We've got control over it, so we could actually effectively use it. So from those lessons learned, what we're being able to do within Kier is we've looked at that template and we've standardized it. We've taken our key learnings from the project and we've put it into a standard Morta template. We have then taken that template and we've designed a data schema that's held within it. And the data schema covers common data environments, and it also covers IDP, including the different variations of it. So we'll have stuff like the DFE, we'll have stuff like the DIO, the MOJ, for instance. They'll all have their unique variations on IDP, and we can bolt those on top of the standard data schema. So what that means is that we can we can report consistently. So we roll this template out on every single project, and that allows us really high quality reporting. So what we've done, as Carl was talking earlier, was we've distributed this IDP template to our different regional businesses. And within the last couple of months, we've gone from pretty much just using it custodial to now using it across the regions. Each of the regions are picking up their projects, and they're again feeding their learning back into this template. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we can control that, because what we found is you can very quickly deviate away from a standard very quickly with lots of different people. So that's the real challenge of this, is how do we drive consistency when we've got lots of people involved. And so yeah, it's a very cool, interesting thing to be involved in, and Morta is fantastic at being very flexible and customizational, and sometimes that can be a downfall as well. So but I'm not going to say stop developing it, Mo, because I think it's a brilliant platform for this tool. So Colin, do you want to jump on to the next slide? So as I was mentioning earlier, it's a challenge to be consistent across different regional divisions, lots of different people, lots of good ideas in places. So what we've had to be is very strict in terms of having a standard, and that standard is fixed. You know, what we've done is we've made something quite simple. It doesn't solve all our problems straight away, but what it is it's a start that we can use to develop further and build on top of. So in order to manage that process, what we've had to think very carefully about how we control the template, who gets what, and when we can develop on it. So the idea is that each of our regions has as many digital construction managers, and we've effectively built a process where we will go ahead and we'll request a new IDP to be set up. So the IDP template is hosted centrally within the automation team, and effectively what we do is got a little message box where we just say, right, I need a new IDP template. We have a very small brief kickoff meeting where during that we jump through a couple of hoops. So we ask some really simple questions. Is a standard template applicable? Do you need extra bells and whistles on top? And you know, effectively we've just got like a swim lane process where we say, right, well, yes, we can use the standard template. Do you need any support with that template? Do you need training? Do you need educating with it? Do you need help with Power BI, or do you need help with basically what IDP is generally? And those sort of questions allow us to then start asking further questions like, so, you know, can we go straight to a launch? Can we then do we need to do any extra development on top? And because the way we are running with Morta internally is that we can do a lot of cool things just out of the box. So we don't necessarily have to go back to Mo and his team to ask for help. We try and to you know, manage this and developments internally, and that way we can control them and keep the template consistent. Where things we are struggling with, or we can't do, we'll go back and we'll ask Mo for some help and Ali to you know to help us out. And I think that sort of level of support has been excellent. So once we've sort of done that development, we just go through a brief user acceptance testing to make sure everything works, get people involved, make sure they're happy with it, and if it's all good, then we'll go live with the changes. But yeah, I think it's the key message here is that, you know, you have to think about how you're going to manage this, because like I said, you can very quickly get into a mess and lose the standardization that we're trying to adopt. So I think that's one of the key lessons that we've picked up doing this process. So Cole, do you want to jump to the next slide? So I think this perfectly leads on to, right, so now that we've established standardized and how we maintain our data set, we now sort of start tackling the people aspect. So in many businesses, this is going to be a brand new thing, brand new process. So what we've had to do is define the roles and the responsibilities of who does what and when. So within the standard template, we've built a responsibility matrix of all the things that we expect to do. So what does a digital construction manager do? What does a design manager do, for instance? How does he interact with the IDP? What does the information managers do? What do information coordinators do? So all these different people that are working with the platform, how do we manage this tool centrally and get the most out of it? That's effectively what we're trying to do at this point. So this is a sort of a starter for 10, and by all means, it doesn't fit every aspect. You know, every job, every region has different roles, responsibilities, people on projects, resource constraints. So the idea here is to give people a base sort of responsibility matrix that they can then agree and take forward project to project, you know, to ensure that we get a successfully rolled out IDP. So if we can manage that, then we're going to get high quality data. and that high quality data can be used elsewhere, not just at a project level, but at a business level as well. Next slide. Unless there's more you want to add to that, Colin? You're on mute.
How have I put myself on mute? That's not good, is it?
Not sure.
That's bizarre, isn't it? I'm not on mute, but I'm on mute.
No, you're not on mute. You're not on mute anymore. There was a bit of background noise. That was my bad.
All right, okay, no worries. Right, thank you. Go back to, let's have a look at this again. I'll just leave the slides out. It's just for ease, if that's all right. Actually, yeah. I won't, just because there might be a little bit of sorry, I was just going to say, Tom, I think one of the big things that the RACI resolves is the complexity in some ways, because it actually makes it into a bit of a what's in it for me model, a bit of a WIFM model. I think that's really important, is that people understand that they're doing something, and by doing it, they're getting a return on that. So I think that's super important, because I think if you get people to buy into what we're doing, that means that everybody owns a piece of the pie. And if you own it, you care about it more. That's just human nature, isn't it? So yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, so I think what we want to talk about now is sort of, we talked about earlier how we were using it locally on our prison projects, and how we've made that useful for those projects. But what we want to do now is make it useful for an entire business. So this whole talk so far has been about how we're scaling it out to our different businesses and how we're using it. So what we want to do now is talk about how to Kier selfishly use that data to help us improve our performance generally. So what we've got is we've got multiple projects within Morta, and we've taken all those different projects. They're all using a standardized template, and we've used Morta's fantastic ability to effectively synchronize those platforms together into one hub. So we've got all of our resources, and what we can do from those resources, we can identify which ones are our standardized data schema resources, and we can aggregate them together into one table. Excuse me, and then we can use that information that we've collected there to then pull on the data set, all of the resource locations. We can pull across into a data platform, so we can leverage all of the good data that all these different projects are collected. Because we've got the project identifiers included within that data set as well, we can then start to do some really clever stuff in things like Microsoft Fabric and Power BI to be able to pull all this data together in one place. So then we can start to see by region, by office, by project, by originator code, by all the different pieces of information that you have in that 19650 file name. We can basically break down, and we can do some really cool metrics. So we can track how well our architects are performing across the board, how much information we have and haven't got delivered, all that sort of stuff, and we're scaling all that up on at a higher level. Now that does bring its complexities, because as I mentioned earlier, every project's going to have its own information standard, right? So this is the bit where it gets a bit fun, because somebody might abuse a role code or have lots of different functional breakdown codes or spatial breakdowns, and they've sort of deviated away from the schema or the standard. So it's quite challenging to map that back. So what we've done is we've built a strategy around that, where we host a series of master tables where we can interpret what that information is, and we can then sort of standardize it back into a set of data that we can use for reporting at much higher levels. And then again, that's just front-ended in business intelligence reporting. And what we tried to do is keep things simple, but also because it's got that full aggregated data set behind it, we can then drill down into the detail as well. So it's not just, what we're trying to do is have a tool that's useful for people at a project level, but then also have a tool that's useful for people at a business level, so we can see those cross comparisons and we can gather insights from it. So yeah, so this gets onto the different levels of reporting effectively. So you've got different use cases. So when at a project level, and a business level is very different in terms of what do people want to see? So it gets quite challenging to build a report or a tool around that. So some of the things that we've been able to do is we've been able to provide projects with visibility into their CDEs. So what information is accepted, rejected, what workflow it's in, what suitability code it's got, all that sort of exposed. And what's been able to do is we've been able to link that back to individual projects and regional offices, and then we can roll that up into simple charts, as you can see here on the right hand side. So we've got two different offices sort of competing against each other in terms of how much information we have accepted. And this is just really giving us a really precise way to track information. It's very much micromanaging document information at that level, but it's going to have to be done in order to be able to use this information consistently and to get benefit from it, really. So it's quite a challenge to do that and still bring people along for that journey, particularly when they might not understand the importance of assigning the correct code or uniclass stuff. So we've got tools that allow us to track if the information is defined in IDPs. So we get this little flagging system. We've made a little graphic that says this is included, yes, no. We've also been able to track if things are consistently assigning uniclass codes. And if they are assigned, it then checks it against the IDP to make sure it's consistent. So the value that gets signed in the IDP, initial planning stage, does it match what actually was delivered? And it creates a little flag from that. So all this is cool, 2 minutes, thanks for that. All this is to effectively trying to improve our performance across our projects so we can understand that bigger picture. So Carl, next slide. So where's next? And I think this is where sort of Cole probably jump back in and sort of like talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I'll really quickly flick over the top of this actually, but thanks, Tom. I mean, listen, I think Tom's simplicity and explanation belies the complexity that's beneath the actual work that's going on. Really, really important though is that we're thinking business first, region second, project third in many ways, and then actually the underbelly of all of that is supply chain fourth, because that supply chain management piece, now that we know we're capturing data about performance, we will be playing that back into future decisions. I'm not going to go through these. I presume, Mo, that we can share some of these slides. You will have heard us talk about these as we've gone through today. I think that you touched on it, Mo, at the start, and Tom's also alluded to it. Whilst IDP is here and now, there are other things that we actually are doing. We already have things in testing. More to the point, integrations with other platforms and looking at how we can harvest data from different places to inform decision making, to drive different performance dashboards. Dashboards are super important, okay? They're an enabler. Everybody can go in, they can click on something and they can drill through that information to get something that means something to them. So we're really trying to change a mindset around how we interact and how we understand project data. And I think just the final one for me is it would be remiss not to talk about something as important as the Building Safety Act, I think, and that is really driving a cultural, behavioural, connected change in the way that we deliver projects. And the future, certainly for us, looks very, very well connected, looks data oriented. We think that we've set ourselves up, we've set a precedent, the foundations are there for really good project excellence. And we look forward to working with Morta in the years to come to help unlock some of the potential and aspirations that we have. And that is us.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And as to be honest, as you said, Cole, like I think the way like Thomas, I think one of the reasons we get really excited about like Kier, generally speaking, and everyone we've worked with, from like Ashley and James and Tom and yourself, is you've really just built a lot of this out. Like you were the first company that started using Morta for information delivery planning 3 years ago. You did it when one-click integrations didn't exist. You did it when we didn't have any templates for one-click integrations. You then also were kind enough to share a lot of that with the community. And I think that's extremely powerful, generally speaking, and you've just set, I think, an amazing precedent for everyone else. So I completely agree when you say it belies the complexity that's behind it, because you actually had to do a lot of the figuring out for what this looks like, and I think everyone else is benefiting from what you've contributed and what you've shared. So thank you very much for sharing all of that with us, and for trusting us, and for allowing us to be partners with you in that journey, and always giving us your feedback.
No, yeah, and I think that we'll always continue to do that as well. I think that it's right that you challenge us, and it's right that we challenge you, and it's right that we all challenge ourselves and each other. I think if we don't do that, then where does progress and good stuff come from?
Yeah,
Actually,
exactly. Yeah.
so yeah, always happy to share. What I'll do is I'm conscious that we took quite a bit of time, so we'll start.
Oh yeah, that was my fault.
We
Once I
can-
get talking,
no,
I get
no,
talking. So you.
It's all relevant content. We'll work through the comments and that come through from LinkedIn and things, and we'll answer questions as we can.
Amazing.
If we don't know the answer, we'll completely avoid the question.
Yeah, that's usually what we do. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much again.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for sharing with us. And yeah, thanks for being on this journey and for trusting us again. And thanks for sharing with the community. Amazing having you with us today. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, look forward to the rest of the day. Cheers.